The worm breaks out of its cocoon for the first time, already equipped with working segments, functioning muscle, and a digestive tract primed to process soil. Year 25, nearly 1 kilometer. Every movement now visibly shakes the ground above it. It no longer tunnels through terrain, it rewrites terrain.
Somewhere beneath your feet, right now, something is eating. Not a mole. Not a snake. Something far older, far stranger, a creature that begins life smaller than a grain of rice, and ends it as a kilometer-long tunneling giant capable of swallowing entire hillsides from the inside out. It has no eyes. It doesn't need them. It feels the world through vibration, through moisture, through pressure in the earth itself. For 40 years, it will never stop growing. It will never stop eating. And by the time it's done, it won't just live underground. It will have rewritten the ground itself. This is the hungry worm. And this is exactly how it would grow, from a single fertilized egg to a creature the size of a small mountain range. Stay to the end, because the way this thing dies is almost stranger than how it lives. The premise. Before we go underground, one ground rule. This creature isn't real, not as a single named species, anyway. But every stage of its growth is built from something that is real: earthworm biology, invertebrate muscle mechanics, burrowing physics, and the actual limits of hydrostatic skeletons, the fluid-based support systems that let soft-bodied animals move without bones. So nothing here happens by accident. No stage skips ahead. No sudden transformation. Just relentless, patient, biologically grounded growth, scaled up to a size that should be impossible. Here's how it happens. Chapter 1, The Egg. Day 0, 3 millimeters. Life begins inside a sealed cocoon, secreted by a structure called the clitellum, a thickened band found on adult worms. Inside the cocoon is a nutrient-dense fluid, rich in albumin, and it's the only food source this creature will ever need before it's capable of feeding itself. Cell division starts within hours. Not randomly, every split follows a pattern, laying down the segmented body plan that will define this animal for the next 40 years of its life. Day 3, 5 millimeters. The body's long axis takes shape. One end becomes the head. The other, the tail. It sounds simple, but this single decision, which end faces which direction, is the foundation every later structure will build on. Faint ridges begin to appear along the length of the embryo. This is segmentation beginning, the repeating, ring-like body units that will eventually number in the hundreds. Day 7, 1 centimeter. The segment boundaries sharpen into place. Muscle tissue splits into two distinct systems: longitudinal fibers, which run the length of the body and let it stretch, and circular fibers, which wrap around each segment and let it squeeze. Together, these two muscle types are the entire secret behind how this creature will eventually move through solid earth, a rippling, wave-like motion called peristalsis. A digestive tube threads through the body's core, end to end. The blueprint is complete. Now, it just has to survive long enough to grow into it. Chapter 2, Hatching. Day 21, 20 centimeters. The worm breaks out of its cocoon for the first time. It emerges already equipped, working segments, functioning muscle, and a digestive tract primed to process soil. Its first meal isn't flesh, isn't prey, it's fine mineral particles, pulled directly from the earth around it. This is a detail that will matter more and more as this creature grows. It doesn't hunt. It doesn't chase. Everything it needs is already in the ground beneath it. All it has to do is get bigger. Day 35, 50 centimeters. Feeding accelerates. Two internal organs, the crop and the gizzard, begin strengthening. The crop stores food. The gizzard, lined with tough tissue and grit, physically crushes it, grinding down material that would otherwise be indigestible. At the same time, its seedy, tiny bristle-like structures along each segment stiffen. These aren't decorative. They're anchors. Every time the worm contracts to move forward, its seedy grip the tunnel wall, preventing it from just sliding backward in place. It's no longer drifting through loose dirt. It's driving through it. Day 60, 1 meter. At this stage, its muscle layers thicken significantly, generating stronger peristaltic waves, the rolling muscle contractions that push its body forward, segment by segment. Its epidermis begins secreting more mucus, reducing friction as it forces its way through denser, less forgiving soil. Its tunnel network, once a shallow scribble near the surface, deepens and stabilizes into something closer to permanent architecture. By any reasonable definition, this is no longer a burrower. It's an engineer. Retention break. Now, here's where things start to get uncomfortable. Everything up to this point, the segmentation, the muscle, the crop and gizzard, all of it is grounded almost exactly in how real earthworms function today, just scaled up. But starting at the 1 meter mark, growth stops being gradual. It starts compounding. Chapter 3, The Acceleration. Day 90, 3 meters. Growth compounds fast now. Each segment doesn't just get longer, it gets structurally reinforced, and internal fluid pressure climbs alongside it. That pressure is critical. In a hydrostatic skeleton, fluid pressure is the skeleton. More pressure means more force behind every contraction. The result, burrowing power that would have been physically impossible 90 days earlier. Day 120, 8 meters. Its ventral nerve cord, the main nerve pathway running the length of its body, sharpens dramatically, picking up vibration and moisture through the earth with startling precision. It can now sense a footstep, or a shift in groundwater, from meters away. Its gut microbiome, the bacteria living inside its digestive tract, stabilizes and diversifies, extracting significantly more usable energy from every mouthful of soil and organic matter. It's not just bigger now. It's more efficient. Smarter, in the only way that matters to a creature like this, it's better at converting ground into growth. Day 150, 20 meters. New tissue layers form inside its existing segments, adding length without adding structural weakness, a growth strategy that lets it scale up without the risk of its own body collapsing under its size. Muscle density increases further, supporting longer, more sustained burrowing cycles without fatigue. Its outer layer, the cuticle, thickens noticeably, letting it punch through coarser, rockier ground that would have stopped it completely just months earlier. 20 meters. Longer than a blue whale. And it's not even close to finished. Chapter 4, The Giant Emerges. Year 2, 60 meters. Somewhere in its second year, the worm crosses a threshold most burrowing animals never approach. Its segment walls reinforce structurally, strong enough now to prevent tunnel collapse even under the sheer volume of its own feeding activity. Internally, a multi-chamber gut develops, allowing it to process soil, roots, and buried organic matter continuously, without pause, without slowdown. At this size, it isn't just living in the ecosystem anymore. It's beginning to reshape it. Year 5, 150 meters. Its hydrostatic skeleton, that same fluid-based support system from day one, hardens under genuinely immense internal pressure. Every single contraction along its body now generates enough force to crush stone-laced soil as if it were loose sand. Local water tables begin shifting subtly around its tunnel systems. Root networks for kilometers around start growing differently, adapting to voids that weren't there a year earlier. Year 10, 400 meters. Its segments now carry armor-like thickness, shrugging off pressure that would instantly crumple any smaller tunneler. Its digestive throughput allows it to sustain feeding across tunnel systems stretching for kilometers in every direction. At this length, if it surfaced, it would stretch across 4 city blocks. It never surfaces. Year 25, nearly 1 kilometer. Every movement now visibly shakes the ground above it. Seismographs, if anyone were monitoring this region, would register its feeding cycles as low-frequency tremors. It no longer tunnels through terrain. It rewrites terrain. Valleys shift. Underground water flow reroutes entirely around its tunnel network. Surface vegetation for kilometers begins to reflect a completely restructured soil ecosystem below, richer, more aerated, and almost entirely shaped by one animal's lifetime of feeding. Chapter 5: What it would mean above ground. Let's pause the size progression for a second, because this is the part most creature scaling videos skip. A creature like this wouldn't just be enormous. It would be an ecosystem engineer on a scale with no real precedent. Real earthworms already do this, just at a scale we barely notice. Charles Darwin, yes, that Darwin, spent his final years studying exactly this, and famously calculated how much soil ordinary earthworms move and aerate every single year, concluding that few animals have played a larger role in the history of the world than these unremarkable-looking creatures. Now scale that roll up by a factor of thousands. A kilometer-long version wouldn't just aerate soil. It would determine where forests can grow, where rivers eventually run, which regions flood, and which stay dry. An entire regional ecosystem, quietly restructured from underground, by an animal almost nobody would ever actually see. That's the unsettling part. Something this size, and it could remain almost completely invisible, its only evidence a slowly, permanently reshaped landscape above it. Chapter 6: Legacy. Year 30. Deep within its reinforced tunnel network, the fully grown hungry worm begins something new. It constructs spawning chambers. For the first time in its life, nutrients stop being redirected toward its own growth. Instead, they're funneled into hardened egg clusters, sealed away inside hidden, reinforced pockets of soil, insulated from both predators and pressure. The next generation, already beginning, decades before the current one ends. This is worth sitting with for a second. An animal this size, after 30 years of uninterrupted growth, doesn't stop to rest. It stops to reproduce. Growth was never really the goal. It was always just the mechanism. Chapter 7: The End. Year 40. Structural fatigue finally begins to set in. Nutrient reserves, stretched thin across a body over a kilometer long, start to decline for the first time in the creature's life. Movement slows. Segment by segment, the same peristaltic waves that once shook the ground begin to weaken, then stall entirely. Eventually, deep in the tunnel systems it spent 4 decades carving, the giant simply stops. But even in death, it isn't wasted. Its body becomes a nutrient source for the very ecosystem it spent a lifetime building, feeding smaller organisms, enriching soil chemistry, closing a loop that started 40 years earlier with a single 3 mm egg. Its hidden spawn chambers, sealed away years before, continue developing regardless. The tunnels remain. The reshaped landscape remains. The worm is gone. Its architecture isn't. Oh Utero. The hungry worm was never a sudden monster. There was no jump-scare moment where it appeared out of nowhere. It was patience. For decades of feeding, one segment at a time, one tunnel at a time, until patience alone became something the size of a mountain range. That's the part that should actually stick with you. This creature never did anything except exactly what a real earthworm does today. It just never stopped. If this kind of slow-built, biologically grounded terror is your thing, subscribe, because next time, we're following a creature that doesn't grow underground at all. It grows in the dark, at the bottom of the ocean. And it's already bigger than you think.